So there's just this incredible level of stress, on an agent when all of a sudden the total volume in their marketplace just starts to disappear, or average sale prices start to come back. And the reason for it is that the growth drivers in any business sit around about four things, and that's going to be about what's happening with your average sale price, what about the volume or total number of transactions, what's happening in relation to your average fee, and then how many annual leave days are you taking. Now, why would annual leave days be a growth driver? Because if you can take more annual leave days and write the same or more income, then what it's telling me is that you're either more efficient in the time that you're at the office, or you've finally scaled with a team that can actually list for you whilst you're away. Now, this is a really important part, because if you want to grow a business counter to how the market's going, so in other words, when a market goes really well, some agents go really well. But when a market comes off, most agents also come off. What I want you to think about is that how do you grow regardless of the market conditions? Now, for me, it's all about the size of the pie. Now, if the size of the pie that you've got all of a sudden has just shrunk, then guess what? You're going to need a larger slice of the pie, or you're going to need to get a bigger pie. And so this is why it's really important for me to actually start thinking that maybe that little farm area of 1,000 homes isn't actually the right measurement, because how many homes sell in those 1,000 homes in that farm area each and every year over a 10-year average? So not the boom, not the bust, but just the average. Because you want to base a business and make sure that your marketplace is actually big enough for your aspirations. Now, really for me, good markets, bad markets, indifferent, they're just markets. And I've got to literally adapt and change to those markets very quickly. Which means to me, maybe I need a higher average sale price, or maybe I need to just slightly bump up my fee. Now, one of my clients was doing something interesting at the moment. She's offering an alternate fee, and that alternate fee is a slightly lower fee and a slightly higher fee. And then what she does, that the slightly lower fee means that she doesn't do a whole series of things, and that a slightly higher fee, she does do those things. And people are like, well, no, I want you to do those things, so let's go with that fee. Now, she said, because I'm giving them two choices, they actually have to make a choice in relation to the fee. Most agents go in at a number, and when there's no choice, then the customer's just going to beat you down. So your role is to actually learn that it's not really a fee, it's actually how you price your services. Now, the pricing of your services is critically important. Let's say, for example, you go and put on an assistant, and that assistant, say, 50 grand a year, and you sell 50 homes a year. That now means that your cost per sale has actually just increased by $1,000 by putting on that assistant. Now, what is that assistant going to allow you to do? Hopefully to significantly improve the quality of the customer experience. Now, the customer experience is really important because it is remembered long after the price point that they paid is forgotten. Isn't this just so fascinating that people are actually in a position that they're looking at where things are at and what's actually going on? And if you're not actually delivering the customer experience, then literally that impacts on your ability to generate, future business. This is what you need to start to consider. The customer experience is critical in actually getting a better fee, but the customer must be able to see that experience long before you get to the point of talking about fees. A retail experience, when you walk inside of a shop, we've all had good ones and bad ones, and whatever people say initially and how they treat you, whether or not they smile and greet you and what they say matters. Well, guess what? We're in the retail business, because when they walk into an open home, when they inquire online, when they're in a position they jump on the phone and they speak to you, that is the first retail experience of what it's like to deal with you as an agent. And if you're not on point, if you're not knowledgeable, if you're not really clear about what you're doing, you're just not going to win. So what I want you to really consider, to grow, you've got to start thinking about improving customer experience. It's one of the great growth drivers, because if you get that customer experience piece right, then everything changes, because people say, hey, it's just great to deal with Josh. And before you know it, more people are ringing for Josh. Your lead acquisition costs go down, you get better customers, and you're actually in a position that the whole game changes. So sure, you could worry about your competitors and what they're doing, but who cares? Why don't you just worry about your customers and what you're doing for them and how you're positioning your services? It's a really simple idea. Are you going to be literally the reject shop, or are you going to be Louis Vuitton? Or are you going to be somewhere in between? And what is the minimum services that you're actually going to provide to the client so they can actually say, you know what, that's my agent, long before they actually need an agent. Well, I really hope you've enjoyed this week's coaching tip, and I look forward to seeing you next week.